Finally, the moment a couple of you have been waiting for.
It's all like bing bong, Jack.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Duval and St. Johns County. The show for Jag fans by Jag fans.
You can't have a newcomer come in and steal the show.
Here are your hosts, Franklin and Michael How do you say it? DeZoba. Welcome to the Jaggernaut Podcast.
Thanks for joining us on another Jaggernaut Podcast, fellow Jag fans, NFL fans, anybody else who maybe perhaps has stumbled onto this station, podcast, YouTube, whatever you want to call it. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Frank. That's Mike.
Duval!
That's right. Duval.
Yeah, we left on a high note. We lost in Kansas City, but we had a damn good season.
Hey, man, I feel good as a Jag fan. I tell you what, this offseason is definitely a different offseason than what we probably after this 2017 season. I think we felt this way. The difference being is we had Blake Bortles at quarterback then. Now we have Trevor Lawrence. Totally different scenario.
And Dougie P, can't leave him out. I think he's been a huge help for this organization.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I was in Walmart the other day, and one of the workers asked me if this was their 2023 hat, and I said no, it's the 2022 hat. I hadn't bought the New Year's yet, and he said, well, that's a really, really nice hat. And I said, you know what? I think it is, but it's really good. It's the first time in a long time. I'm proud to wear it.
Yeah, you know, I was always repping the Jags because even when they sucked, it was like the bad news, not bad news.
That's my team.
Yeah, and it's like because then you can enjoy. It is different when you rep the team now, but back then it was like, yeah, I don't give a crap. I'm going down with my team. I'm going down with the ship, and you know, you're sort of wearing your loyalty on your sleeve to a certain extent. You know, you're like the Cubs fans were for, I don't know, forever. A lot longer than what we were, but regardless, it feels the same. So off-season is upon us, and we started the off-season, and the cap was an issue for us. The Jaguars spent a lot of money in the off-season last year. And now the cap, the past 2 years, I think we were under the cap going into every offseason by a substantial amount. And now we are over the cap. So
sir, we are technically currently under the cap.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw.
You're right. Now we are under the cap because of a number of different things that have transpired in the past I would say week, but it's actually been a few days, really.
Yeah.
So they re-signed and restructured Roy Robertson Harris. I'm not sure C.J. Beathard's contract actually comes into play so much in regards to the cap. They restructured Foye Oluokun, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Brandon Sheriff, and JaMychal Hasty.
Well, they re-signed Hasty. They didn't restructure him, but they did re-sign him.
Fair enough. I should not have added him to that list. That's true. They re-signed him. So so the first thing that happened was C.J. Beathard. That's kind of like typical maintenance in my mind. What comes to your mind when you think that we re-signed C.J. Beathard?
Nothing. I'm like, okay, he's a backup. So we got a backup they like.
Trevor probably likes him.
Yeah, I think we saw him for a little bit last year when Trevor got hurt, I think, for maybe a series or two. He didn't look great to me.
Right.
You know, so
at times he's looked good.
Yeah, but there were other times, like the Buffalo game, I think he looked pretty good
great.
In Trevor's rookie year. So yeah, I mean, to me, he's a backup. He's an experienced backup. So cool. We need an experienced backup.
And he knows the offense.
Just as a safety blanket, and I'm okay with that. It's the same thing with, like, what do you think about Hasty? I was thinking about this today, and to me, when I was thinking about him and ETN are very similar in skill sets. And it's really nice to have a low cost guy, and I think he's low cost. We don't have the details of his contract, where you can put him in and have an ETN type to play the same role so that your offense doesn't really miss a beat. Make sense?
It makes sense, except for I would disagree. In the comparison to ETN, I think they're. I will say that I think that their skill sets are close enough to where you don't have to adjust the offense too much. I think Hasty's probably a little bit better of a pass blocker, maybe
a receiver too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I will say this. I guess this is the stuff that a team has to deal with. It's not flashy, but who else do you have on your team? Snoop Connor? I mean, that guy. Who's that? That's a guy we drafted and we've never really seen.
Well, we saw him during the preseason last year, and he was not very good.
Well, he got a carry in the regular season too.
So,
but
did he score? I thought he scored in the game.
Whatever. Okay. Yeah, who cares?
So anyway, yeah, that's our backfield. But I do like the fact that you don't have to tinker with the offense with having to play your backup. Does that make sense? You can call the same plays the exact same way you would with ETN in there.
I think maybe a better comparison is that he probably compares more favorably to James Robinson, and maybe the thought process is that you can get rid of James, who's coming up on a contract year. Why are you laughing, man? He's not ETN, dude.
You have a serious man crush on James Robinson.
I'm a big James Robinson fan, and I will not apologize for it.
Yeah, you need to wear you some James Robinson swag.
Dude,
rep him.
Serious talk. I was looking on the NFL website, the store, shop, whatever you call that.
Oh, you might be able to get James Robinson,
dude,
for like $20.
Hey. They got stuff on there with Robinson. I was very clear. I was considering clicking, man. I was considering clicking just to sport the one. Remember when we had James Robinson? I'd be wearing the gear, That was back in the good old days when we had James.
Now, please don't get me wrong. I don't mind James Robinson. I like James Robinson when he was here. I think he's a good dude. I like him in the Jets. I didn't like the trade. I didn't want to walk away from him because I still thought he added value to our football team, and I still believe that. But I'm not beating the drum to bring him back. I'm not comparing Jermichael Hasty, who's probably faster and a little bit more of a scat back.
He's faster.
And James Robinson is sort of between. I don't know. To me, he's more of a. I think he's closer to a bulldozer than he is elusive.
Yeah.
Whereas ETN's more elusive, and I think Jermichael Hasty is more elusive.
It's weird. The skill set sort of like if you take James Robinson and ETN and you kind of mold them in or hit a middle point, you almost get Jermichael Hasty to a certain extent. So I guess my thought is this with James Robinson. The reason why I like him is because, look, if you look at the rating of our offensive line is great pass blockers, but not great run blockers. They're just not. Even last year, they were not great run blockers.
I get it, man. I get it, but he's no longer a Jag. And this is a Jag podcast.
I just brought him up as a comparison. You're the one that went on and on, so now you brought it up, and I gotta contend with the issue.
Because he's not a comparison. Like, to me, he's not even close. Like, I'm not saying good
I love James
versus
Robinson.
bad.
James Robinson, come back.
There you go. I'm not saying good versus bad.
No, I know you're not.
I'm just saying two different types of backs.
But you laughed like it's some sort of no. It's not two different types of backs.
Because
man. Do you remember how good James Robinson was at catching the pass? You just said Jermichael Hasty was good at catching the pass. You just said that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the similar body type, pass catching. guys. Yes, Hasty's faster. Yes, he's faster. But guess what Robinson is? His vision's amazing. With that crappy run blocking line, he maximized almost everything. Now, last year wasn't his best year when he was here, granted. He fell off a little bit, but that was to be expected. He was coming back from a big injury. So anyway, let's move that aside. Let's talk about where do you want to go?
Let's table that.
Okay, so we restructured all these people. We can talk about that. Anybody individual you want to single out in regards to what they did.
So what we did was we took this money and we turned around and we re-signed Roy Robinson Harris to a 3-year, $30 million contract. Does Roy Robertson Harris command $10 million a year? Do you think he does? Like, what's your personal opinion on that?
Okay, so this leads me into something I wanted to talk about, which was value in regards to. So what happens is this. People look at a player and they look at them in regards to a vacuum. Almost like think about if you're playing Madden or something, they got a Madden score. And there's some metric that says, a Madden score of this much equals a salary or contract total value of this much. I get that, and that is true, okay? But we don't operate in a world that is a vacuum. And what I mean by that is it's not just about the value of Roy Robertson Harris. It's about what he means when he's gone. We brought in, I can't even remember his name now because he's got a similar name to Oluwakan, Foley Fatukasi. So we brought in Foley Fatukasi. We had Harris here, okay? Fatukasi came in as the guy that's supposed to be our 3-technique, run-stuffing, defensive tackle guy. To be honest, Devon Hamilton and Roy Robertson Harris were better than Fatukasi was last year. Now, maybe that'll be different this year. Fatukasi's under contract. We'll see what happens this year. But Fatukasi's first year with us was not great. So the point is this. If you just take Roy Robertson Harris out of the mix, just from a pure player acquisition standpoint, and I'm not talking about anything else, then you're dealing with a hole that you'd still have to fill. Like, who are you going to get to fill that role? So it's not just about whether Harris deserves $10 million based on what we've seen in totality. It's about what it does for our team to keep him. His value increases because it would be a bigger detriment to lose him if he goes away. That's just a pure metric by his skill set being on the field.
It's funny you say it that way, because when I first saw it, I was thinking, oh my God, we overpaid for a dude we already have that we knew was a role player.
Yes. Okay.
And you're right. He's a valued role player. He's not Adam Gotsis, right? Adam Gotsis is just, he's a twinge role player, if you will. Whereas Roy Robinson Harris is a guy you could put in the game and not feel bad about.
Yeah.
So maybe $10 million isn't that bad. I came in thinking, man, we overpaid. We're supposed to be at a point where we're not overpaying.
Right.
Now, I like the fact that we re-signed him, because it's like, you come here, you earn that second contract, we'll pay you that second contract.
That's another point. That's another point.
To me, I'm a stat guy. I'm the Madden score.
Yeah.
I look at stats and I'm like, dude had like 6 sacks over the last 2 years. Yeah. Why are we doing this? But I get your point, and I think it's a very fair and honest point. And I think that, yeah, I would put him somewhere in a 6.5 million maybe range. But with the extra value that we gain from him being on our team and for us not having to fill that spot, that can make up the extra $3 million.
I'm glad you brought up stats too, because you can learn and glean things from stats, no question about it. But sometimes stats don't tell the whole story. So there's the intangible aspect that he brings. Now, I don't know this to be sure. I'm not in the locker room. But there are a few indicators for me that make me see that him specifically, he's one of these core guys. When you have a team that becomes, that molds, that gels, that all of a sudden has this heartbeat that we all witnessed, there tend to be these players that are focal points of it. He was one of them. When I went and was looking at the videos to try to do the hype video, he kept coming up a lot. Like, now maybe whoever does the videos has a crush on Roy Robertson Harris. I don't know, but for some reason he's like a hype guy. Like, he on the field and on the sidelines, he's just demonstrable. And so he's rallying the troops. He's like a field general. So even if you don't see the stats attributed to his name, I think what you saw intangibly, possibly, is a guy who is a leader of men on that side of the ball. And the coaching staff, by paying him, probably is accentuating that point, that for what I saw. So there's that aspect of it. I think also for me, what Harris and what the fact that they went out and so far have re-signed only their guys, and from what we're hearing, are not really interested in being partaking in a free agent. For one, they don't have a lot of money.
A lot of money, right.
They have cleared up cap space, so if they wanted to make some move, they could. But they're interested in looking inwardly and keeping the core people that they have, which I love that as a strategy, because my thought process is, and this goes back to value again, because I'm wanting now, because we are at the point where we're having to do things creatively with the cap, we are now going to have to get value out of the draft in the next few years. And
every year from now on, if you want to maintain an actual playoff caliber squad, you get value every year from here on out. You give them a year to sit behind somebody, and then you put them in, and then they become your players, and that's what it should be. Right, but we've missed so often in every single round, in every single draft, up until probably, and I hate to admit it, but that Urban Meyer draft wasn't technically a bad draft. You could say, well, it's easy, but how many times have we sit here and said, well, you got to hit on your number one, you got to hit on your number one. So,
yeah.
Anyway, let's hope that started this whole thing off. Let's hope that starts the ball of fire that pushes us through to the Super Bowl and to the playoffs for the next 10 years. We want to be one of the Bengals. We want to be one of the Bills. That's what we want to be, the Chiefs.
Yeah, and for that, what are we looking for? We're looking for stability at this point. Like, we're not taking big, massive swings, we're not doing Hail Marys at free agents that are on the street hoping they'll come in and will strike gold here. We've got guys now that are good enough because we've seen it on our team. So that's my thought process, is like, and it appears at this point to be the Jags thought process, which I love, which is to say, look, we've got guys that can compete. We saw them compete. Now you can say, and Roy Robertson Harris is a perfect example. You could say, well, he really only had half a good year. Like, his first part of the year wasn't that great. Maybe the Indy game was good, and he really came on toward the back half of the year. So do you pay a guy like that? Well, who didn't have that season? I mean,
that's a fair argument. So let me ask you this. Okay, so you think it is value. I think $10 million a year. It's valued for what he brings to us.
Yeah,
the football player and what he brings to the team. It's
equal. Like I would say, yes, I think it's a fair contract for in totality for the situation the Jags are in and how valuable he is with his circumstances and intangibles.
All right, cool. So you got like $10 million left, maybe a little less, but you know you can fudge the numbers to get a little bit more. Who do you spend it on? We have 2 more big free agents sitting out there, right? You have your right tackle.
Yeah.
And you have your tight end. Both played huge roles. Now, who do you bring back?
So for me, if you can only bring one back, I'm bringing back Evan Ingram. One, his contract will be less, but 2, I need that outlet for my quarterback.
See, and I'm not sure his contract would be less.
Oh, really?
Like, was Jawan Taylor that good of a right tackle that he's in the top 10, say, stat-wise?
He was our best offensive lineman. That's the problem that we're in.
Right, he was our best. But where does he measure up against the rest of the NFL? Like, I understand because our best isn't great in certain areas.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that is not a knock on Jawan Taylor, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, look at our entire defensive line, right? Judged by the rest of the NFL, they were not a good unit,
no,
right? So Josh Allen had a great rookie season and has underwhelmed every other year. Jawan Taylor has underwhelmed every year except for this past year.
No, his rookie season was pretty good.
Okay, all right. So he's 2-2.
Yeah, he had a lull there.
Okay, so but now Evan Ingram, do you feel it might be easier to replace your tight end?
No,
you got several tight ends coming out in the draft. Now I know we don't like doing that. We want them to sit for a year.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. So you think Evan Ingram now you could always get away with moving Walker Little over to the right. And then that could bail you out for 2 years. By that time, I think you've shedded some of your Cam Robinson money, but you're about a year away from Trevor Lawrence, and that dude's going to break the bank.
Yeah.
If he keeps going. So
and both, to your point, both positions are linked to Trevor's success. I look at Evan as the what would you call that?
Outlet.
The outlet, right. He's the guy that he can rely on to get rid of that ball in time, whereas Jawan's the guy that's protecting him to give him the time to deliver the ball. So we're splitting hairs to that point. I want to sign them both. I think we can. I think we make that happen. Or I think that's the goal. And the hope for me is that you have engendered a camaraderie and a momentum to allow players to want to stay, so that not only do you give them a reasonable, fair contract that they feel is worth what they bring to the table, but they also want to stay here. So the hope is that between that you can and creative salary accounting, cap structuring, right. Like we're creative what accounting. It's weird. Like people throw numbers out. I saw like only 10 million usable space under the cap, 13, and I've heard people talk about 20. I don't remember if that involved getting rid of Shaq Griffin or not, because they have not released Shaq Griffin yet. So the point is that right now they've restructured a number of guys, re-signed a number of guys, cleared a bunch of space to where we were over the cap, now we're under the cap. My thought is a little bit more creative juice. You can get both these guys back, and I want them back. I want both back, because here's the thing I would say. If there's a tackle that needs to go, it's Cam Robinson. that's the guy that we've been waiting for to turn into the great tackle, and he just won't do it. He just is not he's a nice guy. He's a good, he's if you want to talk about value or misplaced value, that's Robinson. When we signed him last year, and I was for it because of the same reason I'm for, you know, you had to have that stability going into Trevor's second season. So I was slightly for it, okay? I didn't like the contract. We were stuck between a rock and a hard place based on that contract and Walker Little, you know. So is there a way we can maybe get out from underneath Cam Robinson's contract, if not this year, maybe next year?
Maybe trade him. Maybe hope that we can trade him.
I mean, if somebody would be willing to trade him, that'd be great, and then we could put Walker Little in his place, because I don't think it will be a drop-off based on experience and vet savvy and this sort of stuff, but I don't see it as a real, like, I think it'll be fine, you know. But the point is that Jawan's not the one you want to get rid of if we're actually looking at this that way. So if you're wanting to keep Jawan, which it sounds like that's what you're arguing, you know, I'm with you on that. But but in regards to priority, Ingram,
because at this point, my understanding is we're like $12 million under the cap. Right. So with $12 million, you could sign one reasonably.
Yeah.
Right. So which one of the two? To me, I don't know which one of the two. That's why I've hired Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, man, I don't. It's splitting hairs.
Yeah.
Which one do you think gives us the best value at their price? You know, here's the contracts. Who gives me the best value at this price? Who's worth more on a football field to you? You know, is it Jawan Taylor or is it Evan Ingram? Because I agree, if we can keep both, if we can just bring back the squad we had last year and add to it through the draft.
Yeah.
Have our second guys take a step forward. I think we could be a better team. No more come from behind. Some maybe, but we're only overcoming a field goal. We're not overcoming 17 points. We're overcoming a field goal, you know, or we're leading more in the fourth quarter by double digits. So that's what I want, and I think that's how we get there. I'm just not sure that we can do it with the way we got our monies. Now, yeah, we will gain $13 million when we release Shaq Griffin, and I expect that to happen on the 15th. I don't know who else is going to get cut. I know there's some other people probably that are going to lose their job. And there maybe we restructure Cam Robinson.
Well, here's the other thing to add to back to the Evan Ingram, Jawan Taylor conversation. If you're thinking about it just in terms of positional value, Jawan Taylor is one of 3 starting caliber tackles that we have for 2 positions. We mentioned Walker Little and Cam Robinson. We're losing Manhurts and Dan Arnold. So that's immediately who popped into my mind when you said who else will lose their job. Well, I mean, I don't know that they'll lose their job. I don't know, but their contract's up. So right. We have 3 tight ends and 3 tight ends contracts up.
And no tight ends.
Right. So to me, it's all the more. Now, we're not going to go into the season that way. So, but the point is that to me, again, to this concept of value, Ingram has showed himself to be everything and more than what we've expected when we signed him to the 1-year contract in this past offseason. So, or the previous offseason. So, I think, you know, when you find that, which here, think about our tight ends if you look at the landscape of tight ends, and I know we think of the ones that are great. We think, oh, this is a good position. Like, we can find one of those guys that are like, you know, half as good as Travis Kelce probably. And it's like, I don't know that you can. Like, that's how crazy that position is. Go look around the league. There are not a lot of good tight ends. You could literally name the tight ends that are good. Kelce, Waller, I mean, without Kittle, yeah. I mean, it's like you got a couple that have popped up. I forget the new guy with the Lions. So there's like 6 or 7 on 32 teams. We have one of them. So yeah, we keep that guy. That's a priority for me for sure. But again, we also signed Jawan, and when we're getting rid of Shaq Griffin, which I'm pretty sure we are, that's going to alleviate some cap space and be like, here, Jawan, here's your money. That's my thought process on it, and that will provide that stable core. And then we're only focused on the draft at this point. And what's interesting, let's talk about this. When I think about going into the draft, and this is something that I've harped on, we want to be one of these teams where we're not drafting a starter, we're drafting a backup. And honestly, I can only think of one position that I would be thinking could be replaced by a rookie, and that's our left guard. I can't think of any other position on our team starting. Slot corner. I forgot about slot corner.
Yeah, slot corner. If we bring everybody back, slot corner. After that, it's hard.
And that's great. Hard. That's great.
Although,
to me, that's amazing,
man. It'd be nice to get D line help, like not run stuff in D line help, but somebody that's going to create havoc in the backfield for the quarterback, right? Yeah. Like, I like Josh Allen, but I'm not sure next year we keep him because I don't know that I see him earning a second contract with us.
Yeah,
I think he's good against the run. I think he's very athletic. He is a good dude. I think he's a great teammate, but he just cannot get to the QB.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too. I don't know what the deal is with him. You know, when you go back and you look at the tape, he's another one of those guys where if his second half of the season would have been something that he would have been doing the whole season, you would have looked back and thought, okay, this was at least a decent season for a defensive end statistically. And of course, we all are enamored by the way the season, the last half of the season went. We remember the plays and all the stuff that he did. But your point's right. In the totality of his contract, on his rookie contract, he is not the number one defensive end that we expected. So it is interesting going in now. This is his 5th year, right? So
this will be his 5th year.
I think we're both assuming we're going to give him the 5th year option, do the 5th year option, first round picks. I know there's been talk. Some Jaguar fans are talking like maybe we can trade Josh Allen. I don't know what what are your thoughts on that? Trading Josh Allen, like if you
it depends on what we get.
Like, what would you want in return for Josh Allen? What would be the minimum you would pull the trigger?
I don't know. Probably a 3rd rounder.
Oh wow, really?
Some cap space and maybe a player.
Yeah, I'm totally different. I guess I'm a lot higher on Allen. Only because
you're not getting a first for him.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm almost like I would want a first because this guy's a guy that I think is. I don't expect him to suck, right?
See, here's the difference. The difference is, so you talked earlier about Roy Robertson Harris and having all of these intangibles that help bring up his value, right?
Yes.
Are those intangibles still there with Josh Allen when you're talking about a defensive end that's going to make, 15, 16, 17 million a year? Is he Joey Bosa? Is he any one of the Bosa brothers, right? I mean, so that's what that's what I'm saying. But he's going to ask for that type of money. He's going to look for that. He probably will ask for that type of money. He probably will look for that type of money. So I'm not saying, and then that's where we get back to value, because his Madden score, you know, he came out in the offseason and he said he wanted to be the best defensive end in the league. Kudos to you, man. But when it comes contract time, understand you're not even in the top 32. That means every team has a better defensive tackle or defensive end than you do. Is that
true?
I don't know. It's close.
Yeah, I mean, it's close enough to where I can't just instantly argue the point. I would say this, though, you know, back to that, you know, value aspect that I tried to, you know, the way that I look at it. We just drafted a #1 overall defensive end, or if you want to call him linebacker, as we're calling him, which is the same thing. It doesn't matter because Josh Allen's position on the other side, he's linebacker too. So it's the same position, and we saw really not great from Trayvon. So here's the problem that we're in with Josh Allen. We would love for him to have shown this, because then we wouldn't feel this angst about re-signing him. The problem, as you've pointed out, is their angst is based on his performance. It hasn't been amazing. But once he's gone, who do you have there? I mean, Dawon Smoot just got hurt. And I love Dawon Smoot. He's great. And I actually feel like he's a guy that if he hadn't gotten hurt would be a guy you would sign. And maybe he would make it easier to get rid of.
So maybe you let Roy Robinson Harrison walk and re-sign Dawon Smoot.
Maybe, but the way that we run the defense is different. You know, he's playing defensive end in the 3-4, whereas Josh Allen's playing linebacker in 3-4. So it's kind of a different animal in the way now, the hybrid for whatever, you know. So maybe there's flexibility there, but and here's the other thing, to your point that you made earlier. Roy Robertson Harrison isn't going to be thinking in the realm of Joey Bosa. That's right. A different contract stratosphere, and that's a different threshold level where all of a sudden the value I just argued for kind of goes away. Like, I wouldn't be arguing Bosa money for Roy Robertson Harris, obviously. So
anyway, you know, it's still a year out, so he has a year to make his case. But you're right. We don't have anybody behind him. And we can't – you can get an impact player, but you better damn draft him right.
And that's the thing. Are you going to get that at a third-round pick?
Yeah, and that's exactly where we would be picking.
That's why I'm like, maybe you go, okay, you get out from underneath the contract looming, and you get the third-round pick, and you trade Josh Allen, and I can see how that would make some sense, but it's like, but we'll have a hole, and we're not going to get are we expecting a third-round rookie? We didn't have success with our #1 overall pick at that position. So I think at that point it artificially raises Josh Allen's value to our team this year. So we go, you have to make it, you know. So on this point, this is something that I think dovetails nicely, because the GM for the Bengals said, we're not interested in trading T. Higgins. And I think, I thought there seemed to be this upswell for some reason that they might be interested in trading T. Higgins. And the reason why I bring that up is because here's a team that goes, no, for us, he's value. You know, he's too valuable to trade. And so in like manner, I'm almost thinking, yeah, for us, Josh Allen, you better come sweet, because, you know, it's not just.
But there's a different situation brewing in Cincinnati. And the thing is that T. Higgins is going to be due up for his contract, right? So you pay him, and you pay him receivers, they're divas, right? So he's going to ask for a lot of money. If you pay him, then you turn around, you pay Joe Burrow. How much are you giving Jamar Chase?
Yeah.
Who's going to be due up not soon after.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So at this point, you can pay T. Higgins, you can pay Joe Burrow, you can pay Jamar Chase, but you will be fielding a game day offensive roster of 3. And that's it.
Yeah.
It'll be like Sandlot football. Everybody just go deep.
Right. And maybe that, and it could be the fact that he's saying, you know, oh, we're not going to trade means
I'm open for business. I'm open for business
let the bidding start at 2 first-round picks. You know, it's like you ain't getting two first rounders,
right? Because Jamar Chase is
buddy.
their number 1 guy. That's exactly why.
Yeah,
and so
and that's somebody. Honestly, if we can make it work, I'd be interested bringing in. But
we can't. Like I don't see it because basically we spent Kirk money. All of our Kirk money, you know. So
we'd be pushing everything out, and for sure, yeah. I mean, I understand the dollar value would makes it very, very difficult to imagine it. But I just like the idea of T. Higgins, Christian Kirk in the slot, and then Ridley. I mean, that's a XYZ combo. Right there.
Yeah, Zay Jones and Evan Ingram.
And they're your backups. Well, not Ingram, but you throw Ingram in the mix, it's like, who you guarding, man? Who you guarding? Yeah. So that would be immense help to, you know, because our window's open. That's the other way to look at it, too. It's like, do you want to sort of, you know, kind of push your chips in?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think you push in half your chips. See what you get next
I like
year,
that. Because you don't want to
shove the rest of them in.
Yeah, you don't want to do because your window's open for a number of years. You know,
right.
That's the thing, and so maybe it's too reckless of a move, but the point is like they value T. Higgins. I think we should value Josh Allen, and at least like you said this year, and we'll see what happens. I mean, if he has a great year, then. And that's something that we should, that I think's worth saying. It's possible that the defense can pick up where it left off, because that was part of what we saw last year. It wasn't just Trevor sort of catching traction. It was the defense started to sort of feel itself. And we've got 2 rookie linebackers last year that are coming into their next year, and our linebackers, you know, if you really examine our defense, our linebackers were our weak spot. So another year under their belt, they settled down. They actually understand what the heck they're supposed to be doing back there, and Devin Lloyd. Then, you know, all of a sudden you get some stability and the other players can make some plays. Everybody's, you know, eating, as they say. And then you do look up and next year you go, wow, Josh Allen had 12 sacks, you know. He was close. What's interesting is like, and I think I mentioned this last week, like we were really close around the ball on defense.
Right, we just couldn't get there. We were top 5 in QB pressures.
We're close.
It's funny. We were like top 5 in QB pressures, but like 31st in QB sacks.
Yeah. So do you feel like sort of keeping the crew is kind of going half with your chips in, saying, I'm betting that next year will be that we'll push that inch, that stability, that will push that over the edge?
Yeah, I think it's fair at this point with these men that we push half our chips in. Say, okay, you know, I'm gonna bet you. I'll bet with you. There we go. And then next year, depending on this coming year, I think that's when we decide to either go all in and mortgage everything for the next 4 years, or whether we just stay with sort of half our pot, trying to wait to understand how the table's going to work out. Because we may not get a better shot. With the Texans, the Titans, and Indy all looking for quarterbacks. And they all pick high.
Right.
So they all can potentially get a good quarterback, right? So you give them the first year, not necessarily a mulligan, but you give them the first year to build.
Right.
So we got that year. And then after that, they may become a problem. So that's
a good point. You can't expect the AFC South to suck forever.
Forever, because it's not going to happen.
Right. Right.
You know, eventually we'll be one of those divisions where it's like, no, nobody wants to play that division. And what we do is just beat ourselves up. That way, when whoever wins gets to the playoffs, but you're so crippled from beating up everybody else that you don't have any gas to go the rest of the length.
Yeah. And I think that's where he gets back to stability long term, just become one of those teams, and I think we can do that. I think Doug Peterson's brought us stability. Whatever momentum we've built up this season, if they can just maintain that, you get multiple shots, and that's what the good teams do. They have multiple shots every year because almost every year they're getting into the playoffs.
Yep.
And we look like we are on the verge of being that team, or one of those teams. And I think that it appears the strategy that they look like they're going to employ, I think will make that a possibility, which is to say, sign your guys, create that stable core, build on the momentum from last year, look at the draft, do the best you can, bring guys in, and let's see where they fit in. We got backups. Maybe we run into some guys that are like, holy crap, this dude's amazing.
Badass, right. Right. This guy came out of nowhere.
Next year, maybe it's a defensive end from some small school somewhere, and it's like, Josh, it's been fun.
Who knew about him in the 7th round, right?
Right, exactly. And you never know. And that's the way we need to play this thing. We've got a stable coaching environment. So the players that come in, there's really no reason why the environment around them should cause any issues with their development. So it's an interesting offseason. It's been so long, I don't know I don't know what to expect to watch. It's interesting. Like I don't expect starters to be really up for grabs per se. We're going to be looking at guys just like, do we have jars on the shelves for when somebody goes down and next year's contract talks, and it's a different feeling for Jag fans, I think, this year.
I think so too. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. It's a new feeling.
I got a feeling.
And some James Robinson love, baby. Ooh, some J-Rob.
Soft spot in my heart for James. This goes out to James. Well,
all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. It was a pleasure. As always, I bid you adieu.
Night, y'all. Or good day. Good day.